Join Samantha and Hans at the next Macro to Micro Options Power Hour, held each Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Registration is free. Scan this QR code or click on the link in the description.
Also have Scott Murray of Smashing Volatility. I'm also a fan. Dealers were sellers. On the last report, they were selling calls and whether to overrate or take profits before and after. So calls being sold means dealers off the hook and they can sell the underlying. So that was one of the reasons why we also went lower in Nvidia post earnings last report. We'll see if we have a repeat of that in a few minutes because they're going to report pretty soon. All right. So what's your take on semis in general and then big picture? I'm not in it. I already mentioned 96 to 136. We've been updating that every single bloody week and it hit last week. There's just no interest for me until after earnings have played out. And basically, I'm still waiting to see if we're going to have a big reaction to that report, but I'm not expecting one. So there you go.
Yeah, I almost wonder if there's just almost lack of interest in Nvidia in a way. Not that there's lack of interest. It's still 12% of daily option volumes, but last year we probably saw Nvidia volumes like 30 to 40% of daily sort of option trades. So it was really it was the thing. And we've seen this kind of denouement over the last 7 or 8 or 9 months where there's been all this back and forth. Is CapEx coming down? No, it's not. Everyone says it's not, but everyone's still skeptical. It's almost that's the most skeptical thing out there, even though everyone keeps saying, oh, we keep spending like gangbusters. So there's been this almost, and maybe a broadening out that we saw start to begin last August, September, where other sectors started to do okay and the market started to broaden out. And maybe that takes some of the luster off the AI, the Mag 7 that had done well for a good year and a half. And so here we are with one of the lowest straddles, pricing one of the lowest straddles. And what's interesting actually is, so we've got a relatively low straddle, 6.5%. It's lower, it's not insignificant. And the thing is, sometimes the straddles are very low because people just don't think anything's going to happen. And that sounds like Captain Obvious speaking. Maybe nothing is going to happen. Sometimes there's truth in what's being priced in there. And we've had this very nice 50% bounce off that 90 level. We're maybe 10% from the highs. We're closer. We're pricing in a lot of good stuff at this point, even though I think a lot of hedge funds have really gotten out of mag. I'll show you some positioning in a moment, but nobody's really in this market yet. And I keep saying this and we keep bouncing back. And I think that's really a part of it. We had a couple of tape bombs last week. And then of course that was the biggest flinch and flip I've ever seen from Trump. Bless him. He is definitely predictable in a way. His flinches are V's, just like the market. They're V flinches now. He doesn't even wait. And then suddenly it was, okay, we'll give the Europeans another month to think about things. So there's a turnaround in his kind of game, very quick turnarounds as well. And so here we are back again, really not that far from all-time highs. We can see this Nvidia skew here. So when we talk skew, folks, it's basically a lot of people talk about volatility. Where's pricing? Where are they pricing this and that? What's the straddle worth? The straddle last I looked is about $9.15, which is probably around your percentage there move that you mentioned, Samantha. So $9. So that means if you're long the straddle on Nvidia that expires in 2 days, you got to have the thing move $9 or you're not going to make money on the thing. You're not going to make money. Now you may not, if it moves $5, you're not going to lose all your money. But so the market was looking for about a $9 move. But if you look at skew, so as I was starting to say, that pricing that everybody looks at, sometimes it incorporates skew, which means what are the out of the money puts doing, what are the out of the money calls doing, it all goes into the same sort of cauldron in this recipe. You can see it's very flat. So not only is the straddle very low, but at the same time, what I would consider skew is that added excitement, right? So the sort of baseline level of option pricing that you hear about, that's okay, you're going to go to the blackjack table. The skew is where people are like, okay, I'm going to do this crazy bet at the craps table. I'm going for this 30 to 1 kind of trade. When skew is really steep, people are really trading excitement. And you're just not seeing that excitement in the skew. And so we're going to have
all kinds of good reasons too.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't make it a smooth pass. He definitely takes great offense, by the way, to being labeled Taco Man. I don't know if anyone caught that press conference today, but he really took offense. He said that was a nasty comment, a nasty question.
Did he?
But yes, he really. So anyway, tariffs are coming harder, bigger, very soon, just for him to to prove his manlyhood. Anyway,
I like tacos. I like tacos, and I know he likes tacos, so it's not that bad.
it's not about that. But okay, so
Okay.
long story short, we don't have a lot of excitement built in. There isn't a really big reward for the risk, which is another reason why I'm like, I'm fine waiting until after earnings. And then we'll see the guidance, how profit margin is doing. They have been sequentially coming down. We know sales to China have backdoor through Malaysia. It has been very strong, which is one of the reasons, Singapore and Malaysia, which is one of the reasons I wrote that piece that Trump is trying to punish Nvidia like a few months ago, right? Like a few months ago, right after earnings. In fact, he did the same type of thing. He escalated the rhetoric around being tough on sanctions for chip sales into China. So he's doing it again as a warning shot across the bow. There's no coincidence. Anyway, that's why there's no excitement, is because it's not so easy to play this on the upside or downside, because they are still the golden child of the AI ecosystem. And then on top of that, if I can just show this real quick, share this.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, and they're coming out in a few minutes, but I had mentioned a few days ago, last week at some point, when I did my whole, this is the macro event risk coming up. You also still have DeepSeek in the shadows, at least for the US press, of ratcheting up all kinds of open source, not to mention Baba's Quen. But you have a lot of Chinese and Huawei's advances, which Jensen also said in the past few days, China's way ahead in AI. He's not talking them down like Trump and Besant. He's nervous about it, and for good reason. That's not only a big market for them. In fact, China is the biggest growth market. The sales in the US were flat last year. People don't take that foreign component out of it, which is why the Saudi trip was so eventful for Nvidia, because it promises so much X, Y, and Z money that may or may not come to fruition. But AMD and Nvidia absolutely, and other semis, but especially those two, caught a really strong bid. But the one thing that I wanted to show you was, because I just wrote about this, in fact, for Nvidia, which is a big picture, these open source AI, China-related technologies are hurting this closed oligopholistic model. This is Jeffrey's expression. He says, basically, you've got a big problem for NVIDIA. China is using a different approach, but they are absolutely catching up on chip design, manufacturing, and the technology that supports competition, which will compress margins. So even though US investors aren't looking abroad that way, we are, and that's the danger. So there is still, I was going to show you the write-up, but it doesn't matter. You get the gist. So anyway, we'll see what their results were for Q2, which probably were pretty good. But moving forward, we're going to have, I think, some headwinds that the market is not pricing in yet.
Join Samantha and Hans at the next Macro to Micro Options Power Hour, held each Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Registration is free. Scan this QR code or click on the link in the description. Watch the full Options Macro to Micro Power Hour episode by clicking on the video here, and subscribe to LaDucTrading YouTube channel for more content.